Hi, everybody. So today I am very, very excited to be having, as you know, Tourette's Cop on my YouTube blog today. He became a very big favorite of mine to follow on social media very early on. And I think this is going to be a great interview and a great look into somebody else's life with Tourette syndrome. So, Craig, thank you so much for being here with me today and for all of my viewers. I'm sure all of them are very excited to talk to you. So my very first question, this is what I always start out with everybody, was when was the first time you or your family started noticing your tics?
I guess I really don't recall like when they really started, but kind of like my first memories were probably around 8 or 9 years old and in school.
Okay.
They most likely happened before then, but they were never pointed out. It was my normal, so I didn't notice them. And with Tourette syndrome or tic disorders are pretty frequent in the family on my dad's side. So,
Oh, wow.
my parents never made a big deal of it, so
Yeah.
so when I started ticking, they knew what it was. So
That's interesting. I don't talk to a lot of people, or I haven't yet in my videos, that have a long line of Tourette syndrome in the family. I know my family, I'm the only known diagnosed case of it. So
okay.
So it's very interesting when I hear about other things. So I'm assuming they obviously knew exactly what it is. So it was probably easy for them to go and get your diagnosis when you were young.
Actually, I've never been diagnosed.
Oh, wow. I mean, I guess probably not necessary. I mean, me talking,
Yeah.
so I can tell, and obviously people watching can tell. And I guess I'm assuming your family just didn't think it was necessary since they knew obviously what it was.
Yeah, so they knew what it was, and it wasn't to the point where it was interfering with my schooling or my personal life or anything like that. So they're just like, well, if it's not bothering them, just let them tick.
Yeah.
So yeah, they never made it a big deal. So growing up and everything, like I knew I had Tourette syndrome, but for the longest time I really didn't know what that all entailed.
Yeah.
I just knew I had something, and that's kind of just how I how I lived my high school career and early childhood. Is just something that I had, and just something that I dealt with as it came.
Yeah. Was while you were in school and everything, were like other kids nice, or were they okay with it? I know it can go either way with a lot of people.
Yeah, so so for the most part, my tics weren't as severe back then as they are now.
Oh, wow.
So I've always had the hard blink, rapid blinking.
Yeah.
Just a lot of facial tics, and my vocal tics. I was a very shy, very quiet kid all through school. So, and them being not as severe as they are now, I was able to suppress them a lot at school, especially the vocal ones. So when it came to the rest of my tics, they were seen, but I don't think really noticed, type of thing.
Okay.
People saw me doing them, but they weren't as frequent as they are now. So nobody really paid attention to them. Every once in a while somebody would, and I just dealt with it at that time, but there really wasn't a lot of bullying or anything in regards to those that I can really recall.
Good. I always love when I hear that. It's always a nervous question for me to ask, because it brings up like hard times for some people, or it's just a hard thing for some people to talk about. I think if it was a hard time for them in school. So you say that you were shy in school, which is interesting to me because you seem very open about your Tourette's and everything now. What made you decide to put like your Tourette life out there for the public, to start becoming like that advocate? And was it an event, or was it just something you decided to do one day?
So I guess to kind of answer that, we'd have to kind of go back and just like my journey in regards with Tourette syndrome is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
So back in high school, like I said, my tics changed, and they, like I said, they changed, but they weren't as frequent as they are now. So after I graduated high school, I made a really terrible life choice, and I started smoking.
Okay.
And kind of unknowns to me at the time, because it was such a gradual process, my ticks suppressed substantially to where I was hardly ever ticking.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I got to the point where like I mean, if you really have to look at me,
Yeah.
to see to see that I would tick. So that continued all through my college career, and then into my and then into my my law enforcement career. And it wasn't up until just a few years ago, I decided I'm going to get healthy. You know, I'm going to quit smoking and you know, and work on that. So I used the Nicorette gum to help curb my cravings. And I mean, I remember it exactly because it was such a shock to my system. I'd been doing the nicotine gum for probably 3 months or so, and it got to the point where I was just chewing just one piece a day. And at that point, I feel like I'm just chewing this for the sake of chewing it.
Yeah.
So I stopped it. About 3 days later, I was in Nebraska visiting some friends at the time. And actually we were on our way to a church service, and my motor tics like just kicked off. Like it was,
oh, wow.
I mean, they just went crazy. I had like arm stretching one, my shoulder shrugging one, and so some more of my facial ones. I mean, they just came back hard. And I still hadn't put two to two together that it was probably due because I had quit smoking and, you know, just had no nicotine in my system. So I just chalked it up just to, you know, just something. Well, my tics didn't stop. And probably I'd say 2 or 3 weeks later, then my vocal tics started coming back.
Oh, wow.
And so like at that time, like I was completely freaked out. I was like, I have no idea what's happening. So I had set up an appointment with a neurologist, and prior to that, I was having a conversation with my mother, and she's like, well, do you think it has anything to do with you quitting smoking? You know, and that's when, you know, the little light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, oh, you know what? Probably. So at that point, you know, in my entire life, I finally went to a neurologist and then started talking to them about it. And I'd gone through a whole slew of medications to try to suppress the tics, but none of them were working. And the ones I was doing was a lot of the minor side effect ones. Yeah. And they weren't working. So I decided that I was just going to live a very tick-filled life. I stopped going to the neurologist and just kind of called it good at that point. And I don't know if you know who Officer Daniels is. He's a social media influencer. So he got his start, if you remember what Vine was back in the day.
I do.
Okay. So he got his start there, and we had become friends at that time. And he kept going after Vine, and you know, now he has a substantial following. I think he's got like 2.3 million followers on Facebook and about 500,000 on Instagram, and he does a lot of law enforcement related content. So he had approached me and you know, and asked me, you know, like you should start, you know, social media. I mean, you have something that, you know, not a lot of people have, and you are successful with it. You're, you know, able to hold down a job and a police officer on top of that. Yeah. So he had asked me if I'd be willing to do that. I said maybe. I think for the longest time, you know, just because I was still getting used to my tics and everything too, and you know, just being nervous about it and everything. But it just finally came where I was like, okay, let's do this. So he helped me get set up, and it just kind of, you know, really took off from there. And just the amount of support and stories and everything that I've gotten since starting this has just been nothing short of just amazing to me.
Yeah. That's such a cool story of how that like just can continue to progress. And it's crazy to me that not smoking would affect your tics that much. I mean, I obviously am not a scientist or medical expert in any sense of the word, but in
Right.
my mind, I would think it would have been the opposite. But I guess since smoking for some people is that like stress relief, maybe I guess that could be where it came from.
Yeah, because even, I mean, when all this was going on, I was just, scouring the internet and just looking at forums and everything like that. And I mean, the way it seems is it's just kind of, it either helps suppress it or it doesn't. It really depends on the person. So for me, I guess it suppressed them. And, after, almost 15 years of smoking and then all of a sudden not having any nicotine, it just decided to really kickstart my ticks, and now they're back and then some.
It's really interesting, and I find it interesting too because I know, and I'm sure you know as well, like a lot of the statistics show that we're not supposed to be ticking anymore as adults. I remember when I was younger, or at least my mom, I remember being in the room when it was said that when she gets into her 20s, her ticks are probably going to be like basically non-existent. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't wait until I'm in my 20s for these to go away. And for me, it got worse as I turned into an adult, which for me, it makes sense that it would get worse because I'm stressed about so much more as an adult than I was as a child. So,
yeah, exactly.
like I didn't have to get on medication until I was almost 18 and all through college. I'm not on it anymore, but college was stressful. I worked at the same time. For some reason, I decided to go to college, plan a wedding, and buy a house all at the same time. So I was upping my medication almost every month. And that's why, like, the day I was like done with school, the day I turned in my last assignment, I told my husband, I was like, I'm done. I don't want medication anymore. Like, I want to just deal with it. Not that the side effects were too bad. I was on a very mild, like, I was on Topamax, so I had like tingling fingers and stomach aches, which I had stomach aches my whole life. So that was really nothing. But yeah, I decided then to not do anything. And yeah, there's good and bad days. They've been a lot worse through all this kind of craziness going on, like with this whole COVID nonsense. So I know my anxiety levels have been amped up. And so again, my tics get worse. So I find it really interesting that so many people are told that it'll go away almost when you're an adult. And I know some people it has. I know there's people out there where it has, and I'm very jealous of those people.
Right. It seems like we're just the select few that gets to enjoy it for our whole lives.
Yeah, we're the lucky bunch that gets to just keep on living through it, I guess.
Exactly.
It seems like you have a really good attitude about it, though, despite how like prominent they are with you. And obviously, everybody that follows you and everything, we know that you're a cop, and that's like your title, your Tourette's Cop on social media. What made you, did you always want to be a cop since you were a kid, or was there anything like that made you want to go towards that? Or in was Tourette syndrome, did it make you think twice about it at all?
So my tics have never played, back then my tics had never played any part in my decision making. Like I said, they were so, minor that there was never a thought in my mind. It's like, I probably, couldn't do that because of Tourette syndrome, and becoming a police officer was something that I had always wanted to do. But unfortunately, I had taken some bad advice, and I had gone to college for 2 years for something completely different.
Oh, wow.
and just absolutely just hated it.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was like, I'm gonna go be a cop. And that's what I did. And again, and my tics weren't real noticeable. So again, never really paid any attention to them, and no one else did either. So like I said, it wasn't until just a few years ago when they came back that I really had to kind of start thinking about it. It's like, okay, maybe going to the theater and watching a movie probably isn't a good idea because I'm going to be the person in the back row making the most noise. But other than that, I really can't see. I try not to look at Tourette syndrome or my tics as being limited in what I can do. I mean, if I wanted to, I still could go to the theater. I could still watch a movie, but just for me personally, I wouldn't want to do that. So I choose not to. but anything else, there's never a second thought on, whether or not I should do something or not because of my legs.
Good. I love when I hear stuff like that, because I've been very similar my whole life. Is that Tourette's, for me, my thing was my, maybe it was more so my stubborn personality, was that I absolutely wasn't going to let it stop me. Like, if anything was going to stop me, it was going to be this thing. And as far as the movies goes, they're overpriced anyway. So whatever.
Exactly. That's what I always tell myself. I'm just like, well, I could pay $8 for a movie, on the low end, and then like spend $25 on candy and popcorn.
Right.
Or just wait till it comes out on video.
Anyway. So I mean,
yeah. Exactly.
I don't know if you have them, but we have drive-in theaters still around here.
Okay.
Obviously, those are great for people who have vocal Tourette's or vocal tics.
Right.
In the car. And I know I prefer the drive-in anyways, because I have memories of it when I was a kid, and I just love sitting there.
Oh, sure.
And I can't hear people chewing on their food and everything. I can just be in my car and I'm out, but I'm not out all at the same time. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't have too many of those left in Minnesota. I know there's still a few, but there's none that are close to me that I'm aware of.
So going back, just real quick, if you don't mind me asking, and I'm sure you probably get this question all the time. Does the tics ever interfere when you are either pulling somebody over, arresting somebody, any of that? Has anybody been, like, I'm sure there's jerks out there everywhere. We run into them all the time, but does it affect a lot of that, or does it not get, do they not, say, I guess, bring it to light?
So I'd say it's about 50-50 across the board.
Okay.
I'm either going to get people that bring it up, or I'm going to get people that don't. Like there's no in between. I mean, some people that do bring it up are not so nice about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me that they, try to crack jokes at it.
Right.
A lot of times I laugh at them anyways, because sometimes they're kind of funny and I'll congratulate them. And other times it's, I'll have, while on a call, I'll be with, one person for, an extended period of time, and they don't bring it up once. So I guess it kind of just really depends on the person I'm dealing with, and a lot of the times, like the biggest issue with having Tourette syndrome as a police officer is telling people that I have Tourette syndrome. Like it really doesn't interfere with anything other than I just have to answer a question of what's wrong with you? Do you need some water? Do you have a breathing problem?
Yeah.
What's that noise? That's literally most of the things that I have to deal with is just answering people's questions and just letting them know it's like, yep, that's me making the noise. I got Tourette syndrome. This is my normal.
Yeah.
And then, I just quickly explain it, and then I just go back into it.
Right.
So I don't make it a big deal when I'm on calls, or I just don't make it a big deal, just period throughout my life. And I think, just having a positive attitude and just being completely okay with it is what's going to help, everything.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I think accepting myself, I was lucky to be able to find a way to accept myself even as a kid, and I think it's helped me a lot throughout my whole life. But kind of like you were saying, like my family has never, although I was the only person that ticked and did these things with my body when I was a kid, like some of my ticks were a lot bigger when I was a child. I ticked more as an adult, but I ticked more with there was one Christmas Eve I literally did split jumps in the air, and
oh really?
It was an interesting night. Family, they never made it a big deal. They never made it think the night I was jumping, they told me to sit down and do something, but
right.
they never made me feel any different, and I think that's what helped me to just keep going. Well, I'm not different. I just move more than the person sitting next to me. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. This is my normal.
Yeah. It's almost weird. I find myself thinking sometimes that it's almost weird to me to think about other people being able to just sit still.
Right.
I find myself that sometimes I'll joke around and ask people so what's it like? What's it like to just I have those moments. Right. My kid gets worse, and I think we're kind of feeding off of each other right now, actually. But a lot of people watching know that happens when you're with somebody that has Tourette syndrome, but like I sit there, like for me, like it's more weird to not move. It's more weird to sit still and not feel like this, whatever this force is that's taking over. And that's just what,
Right.
I don't know. And then people, I
Like,
know people think that's backwards, but for me, I've lived with this for over 20 years. So
well, exactly. Like I almost get a restless feeling if I have to sit still for too long.
yeah.
Like church growing up was the worst.
Okay.
Because you'd all be sitting in a pew and it's all connected, and then here's little me just constantly shaking my legs, and everyone else down the row can feel that.
Yeah, right. I think that's when I get the most self-conscious, is if I feel as though like I am like interrupting somebody else's day or that moment. Like I take
Right.
to fall asleep. So obviously I sleep in the same bed as my husband, clearly.
Yep.
Um, and I just feel like I'm like, all right, you're shaking the entire bed right now. And I know he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Yep.
All he cares about is if I'm okay. He'll ask me if I'm okay if it gets like intense. Because some of my bigger tics come out before when I fall asleep, because I feel like feeling the bed on my back triggers my back to like want to hit the bed. And then sleeping on my side can trigger my knees. Like I used to do all the time when I was younger. I slam like my knees together, like when you're like curled up and your knees tucked under. And that's like my favorite, like my most comfortable position. So sometimes that'll happen and I'll slam my elbows on the back. And I just like, I put myself in his shoes, but not really, because I know my mind in his shoes is not what he's thinking. But I just keep thinking, oh my gosh, like he probably just wants to sleep and I'm just shaking the whole bed. Or like when I'm at work, I click a lot and I hit my mouse a lot. And I'm like, everybody can hear it. This office is so quiet and all they can hear is you clicking incessantly. And like when I bring it up to people, they're like, I can't even hear it. Like, they told me one job, my old job, they were like, it's like white noise. They told me the one time, like, it's almost weird when you're not here because we don't hear it. We've gotten that used to it that it's weird when it's too quiet.
I suppose.
I'm like, all right,
But
well, I'm glad I can provide that for you.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of one of the positives of, of being in law enforcement is my office is my squad car. There's no one else in there.
Right.
So I can just tick away and not really worry. Although I do have some actual verbal tics, some words, and some of the words are not so nice. And luckily those tics don't come out a lot. And most of the time they pretty much just come out when I'm driving.
Okay.
But I also like to drive with the window down. So, in the summertime, I'm driving down a residential area. I kind of have to like, I'll say one of those vocal tics, because they just kind of pop out. And then I got to look around real quick. I was like, okay, I hope there's nobody, walking their dog or out in their yard, and they just heard me say some not so nice things from the squad car. But, also along the lines of, like people don't notice your tics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've had people say that, multiple times where, like I'm, talking with people and they're just like, oh yeah, I don't even hear them anymore. I always get skeptical. I'm just like really? Like, you don't hear all this? Because I do. But yeah, I mean, just so many people that it's like, like after a couple minutes, they're just like, yeah, I don't even hear them anymore. And, they don't get bothered by it. And, but then, every once in a while that self-consciousness comes in and, you feel like you're bothering people just by just quietly ticking.
Right.
But, it's just a mental roadblock that you have to get over. And it's like, well, obviously I can't help it. And,
right.
And they're fine with it and everything. So you just kind of just gotta just push that in the back of your mind and just, move on with what you're doing during the day.
Right, exactly. And sometimes I even get thrown off. Like I kick my feet a lot when I walk and stuff. And so much to the point where sometimes I don't realize that I'm doing it just because it's my normal walk. And where I work, there's another building where we'll go sometimes to like grab food from like the company. I work for Nestle and there's like a company store where we can go and grab food. And somebody asked me once, and they know I have Tourette syndrome. I've put it all out there because I prefer everybody to know around me rather than them just whispering about what is possibly wrong with me. I'd rather them have the actual
right.
And my friend, he was asking me, and he wasn't being like mean or anything. He's like, I have to ask, like, what are you doing when you do that, like with your foot? I'm like, and I almost start to feel bad sometimes when I have to tell them, like, well, it's a tic. because I know they feel awkward afterwards, especially when it's a nice like person asking. So much so sometimes
Yep.
sometimes I want to be like, oh, I was just tripping, but I do it all the time. So clearly I don't trip that much.
Yeah.
He even said, he's like, I just thought maybe like, he's like, thinking like maybe you got like a rock in your shoe. He's like, there's no way she's getting a rock in her shoe that many times in a row. I'm like,
Exactly.
it's just something that I do. I'm like, sometimes I am tripping because my tick makes me trip because I'm kicking the ground when I walk. But I get in this
Right.
weird mindset where I'm like, well, now I feel bad that I have to tell you, like, this is one of the things I can't help doing because you brought it to light, and I don't want you to think it's weird that you brought it up because it's not.
Yep. Yep. I'm the same way on some of my ticks. Yeah, I play on Xbox Live with a group of friends, and some people I don't see or talk to very often, and we get on and play, and I have a whistling tick.
Okay.
So I have the headset on, and I do a whistle. I didn't think anything of it, just because it's one of my normals.
Right.
And one of my friends made a comment about it, and I just, the way how he said it and everything, I just didn't want to say,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tick. I said, oh yeah, my bad. And then we continued on like nothing happened, just because, for the most part, I don't care if people talk about them, but
Right.
just for some reason, just that situation, I just didn't want to say, yeah, that's a tick,
Yeah.
because I just also didn't want to call him out
Right.
in front of, with everybody else.
Right.
The following night, he says, like, I just want to apologize. I feel terrible. I didn't, it was after the fact. It's like, I didn't realize that was probably one of your ticks.
Yeah.
And I was, at that point, I was like, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
I'm used to that. It doesn't bother me. You shouldn't feel bad at all.
Right.
But, it's just one of those little funny instances, I guess, that would only be funny with someone with Tourette syndrome.
Yeah. And that's where it is. It's almost funny because like there's most of the time when I'm talking about it, and like because I'm so positive about it and I'm very like, this is who I am, this is what you get, like I don't care, I'm not going to try and pretend to be anything different for you. And most of the time I'm just like, if somebody doesn't like the fact that I tick or whatever, then that's on them, I don't really care. But then there's those times where I'm just like, oh, I feel bad that I have to tell you that I have Tourette syndrome, and it's like this constant battle in my head, like, you don't care, like, I don't care that I'm ticking around you, but I also feel bad that I'm ticking around you all at the same time.
Exactly. The constant mental battle that goes on.
Yeah. And I think I'm assuming a lot of people would probably relate to that. Like even like family, sometimes every once in a while, like a family member will ask what I'm doing, and then that's when they feel like the most bad. Like is my family. I think my aunt will still bring up to this day sometimes, like the one time she asked me to stop doing something, and I had to be like,
Oh, right.
she still feels bad about it to this day. I'm like, I don't even remember that happening. Like, I don't.
Right.
So mad at you.
Just no big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm mad at you 15. I'm like, if you would have kept telling me to stop after you found out it was a tick, then we would have some issues. But you never asked me to stop ever again. So it's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
I do want to ask, so obviously I mentioned your dog when we first started because I love dogs and I can't help not to. I'm assuming he's your canine unit as a cop, or is he just like your pet dog?
Nope, he is 100% just my pet.
Oh,
I've just always loved German Shepherds, and yep, finally got him. He's just laying on the ground right next to me.
So does he pick up on your ticks, or does he help calm you down? Have you noticed anything like that? I know my dog will, now that she's older, she doesn't do it a lot anymore because she doesn't feel like getting up, I think, half the time. But for the most part, she's laying by me and she can pick up on those like emotions and stuff. She'll come and like put her head on me, and like she instantly, like, I might not stop ticking, but it is definitely a sense of relief there for me.
Right. Yeah, Dexter is a very he doesn't leave my side ever. So if I'm home, he's within an arm's reach from me.
Oh.
And I do feel like, he does pick up on emotions, and if I'm having an especially tough day in regards to ticks, it just kind of seems like he picks up on that. So he's, extra cuddly, or he just wants to be there a lot closer than what he normally is. but yeah, no, he's a good boy, and he's like I said, he definitely does pick up on some of that stuff.
Another thing, you and I technically have in common, or at least it seems like it. I see like some of your, obviously I'm a follower on your social media, and it seems like you go to the gym and you work out and exercise a lot. Do you find that your tics kind of not disappear, but go away a little bit? I know mine don't disappear completely, but I definitely have either a better day after I exercise or during it. It's kind of is like a free space for me a little bit.
I guess for me, it's really kind of hit or miss.
Okay.
On, especially ticky days, it doesn't matter. I'll be extra ticky when I'm at the gym, but it does seem like, when I am lifting the weights, they are suppressed while I'm doing that. So at least I can get, my set in and all that stuff. And, especially with the breathing part, if I'm doing something especially heavy, I am able to focus at least. So my breathing ones are suppressed during that time.
Yeah.
But then some days, like I said, when they're just that little bit extra, I just try to work through it, or I just don't go as heavy. But no, and a lot of times I usually do my workout after work and, just within a couple hours of going to bed. But I don't think I've really noticed a decrease in the frequency of tics after the gym as compared to before. It just kind of seems like during that time, they're not too bad most of the time.
Is that kind of something that you turn to on a bad day, or is there anything that you do kind of like go towards or lean towards when you're having like a worse day than like the last 4 or whatever?
In regards to the gym, or just in general?
In general.
I really haven't found anything that helps calm my tics or suppress them on bad days, or just any days in general. I just kind of let it buck and just deal with it.
Yeah.
On the especially ticky days, and on that's extra painful, I'll just take more Tylenol.
Yeah.
I really haven't found anything that really does work in calming them for a period of time. Like I started doing a paint by numbers, just because I know I'm not an artist. I don't have a very steady hand. So I'll do paint by numbers. And I have noticed when I'm doing that, my tics are suppressed during that time, just because there's enough mental focus where they just kind of go away. But then, my ADHD kicks in, and I can only do maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then I got to go up and do something else.
I don't do the paint by numbers. I've been very close to buying, but I started doing the diamond paintings where you and those can be good. However, like sometimes I flick my wrist a lot when I'm using my hand. So every once in a while that can be like dangerous to like fling them.
And then they're everywhere.
But they gave me extra. That's what it's for, right? So but I do find that it helps me, that and just regular coloring books, because me too, I wish so badly I was an artist. Like I wish I could draw. My brother's a very talented artist. He can draw and do amazing things. He does a lot of like my graphic work for me with my Tourette's.
But because I know, even though like I didn't tic as frequently as I do now in high school, I was in sports growing up. I was cross country running, cross country skiing, and track.
Wow.
And I mean, during those times and everything, I don't think I really ever ticked that I can recall, just because you're just so focused on your breathing and not tripping or falling or doing anything. So so it seems like at that time, just physical exercise was kind of my escape from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And running for me is like, running for me is such, like, I'm so bad at running. So like when people can do it, I'm just like, how do you do it? Because when I grew up, I could go to a competition and I could dance all day long. You would ask me to go outside and run a mile. I'm like, can I walk most of it?
Or just have like an oxygen tank with me.
I can speed walk with the best of them, with my arms going like the old people in the mall. But
exactly.
running, I've gotten a little bit better at it, but and I think mentally, because I know I'm not a good runner, like I feel like I tick a little bit more with my feet. And so then I get more nervous and I'm like, I don't want to face plant in front of whoever's outside right now.
Right. Like it almost makes you more self-conscious.
Yes.
You know, and that's a huge thing with me too. You know, like if I go to trainings or, you know, going anywhere where there's a group of people that that, you know, don't know me and I don't know them, you know, I'll tick more just because I'm, you know, nervous and anxious about my ticks,
Yeah.
which then in turn makes me tick more. So it's just like this vicious circle where you just can't win.
Right.
You know, except, you know, about an hour or two into it, you know, you're finally just like calming down a little bit. It's like, okay,
Right.
nobody's really staring at me. Nobody cares. You know, like it's fine.
Because it's like at least for me, I talk myself into this, like, this thing. Like when I start ticking, it'll be like that for me when I start ticking in a meeting at work. I start to do it with like my hands, but they're under the desk. So I make sure I like scoot my chair in, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep doing this under the desk, and then but then my stomach will start, and then I have to start tapping on the table, and then my face starts, and I'm like, here we go. Like everybody's gonna start at me.
Like it's happening.
Yeah. I'm in a room where only half the people know that why I'm doing this. My facial ones get me the most when I'm around people I don't know, because a lot of eyebrow movement will trigger me to have my facial tics. And I never want to be in a situation,
Right.
especially at work, where somebody thinks I'm either one, mocking them, or rolling my eyes at them.
Yes. You know, what helps me at work is when I wear my vest for, you know, my bulletproof vest and everything. It's an external carrier, so it puts a lot of, you know, weight on my shoulders, and it kind of hugs my body fairly tight.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that that really decreases a lot of my motor tics in my shoulders and arms and stuff, where when I'm at work and wearing that, as uncomfortable as it is, it does kind of calm my tics too.
Yeah.
You know, so I enjoy that. So I'm not, you know, moving around as much at work. But yeah, I found nothing to help, you know, calm my vocal tics or a lot of my facial tics. It just kind of, I was got to like, it is what it is. If somebody asks, I just let them know, and if they don't, then I don't say anything.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. Like even when I was young, I knew like, all right, I know I have two choices here. I can either hate my life like forever, or I can just be like, this is it. Like there was no stopping it. And I wasn't about to be just miserable. Like, don't get me wrong. There's days where I'm just like, I hate every single thing about this. Like, I just want to sit still for 5 seconds. Like there's days where I cry and I complain, but everybody has those. So,
Absolutely.
But then I get, like, and I know they make me stronger. Like I have a tattoo that says I should remember more clearly what my tattoos say. I have a teal ribbon for Tourette's, and it says like, the pain you feel today will be the strength you have tomorrow, something along those lines. I remember resonating with that quote a lot when I read it because of that, because I know I have bad days, and that's what hurt. Like that's what makes me almost feel like a fraud. I'm like, you talk about how you have this positive attitude all the time, and here you are crying and being angry and wanting it to not be there anymore. And I know that's just my mind again playing tricks on me. Like I'm very hard. We're all our own worst critics type of thing.
Exactly.
And that's what I try to tell people. Like it's not all like rainbows for me. Like there's days I just don't like to turn the camera on and record myself during those days because I don't want to. I don't like that side.
Well, and you know, a lot of times for me is I don't even think to turn the camera on and show that side, is because you know, I'm dealing with all the mental stuff behind the bad day, and you know, the probably most likely the pain that it's causing me as well. You know, so it's just like I don't even think about it. But you know, I'm the same way. You know, I try to make, you know, every day as positive as possible, but you know, we're all human. We're all going to have bad days. We can remind ourselves that tomorrow's a new day, and you know, just to, you know, think about that and just be positive about that. But the day you're at is still miserable. But it's just the strength to continue regardless. You know, and then that's a big thing, you know, with my pages and everything, is just, you know, I just want to show it as Tourette syndrome is part of you, you know, own it. You know, be confident in yourself, be confident in your tics, and then just live life like you normally would. I mean, it's no big deal. And the people that have issues aren't really the people that their opinion matters to begin with.
Exactly. I love that so much, because I mean, it really lines up with a lot of my outlook on everything. And that's what people, my biggest question that people ask me is like, how did you become so open? And it's the hardest question for me to answer because I've just always been this way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm just a take it or leave it kind of person. And so my advice is always to them, I'm like, just start with like one person. Tell them what it is, see how it goes. If that goes well, the following week, if a day after is too much, tell 2 people. Like, just start slow. Like, because when I was this way from a child to adulthood, it's hard for me to turn around and tell an adult, like, well, just do it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's with anything in life. You kind of got to ease yourself into it. Start slowly, build up. It's going to take a while. You can't expect to have this mentality, of being open and confident about it after one day.
Right.
And like you and I, both of us are very open and confident, and want to show the positivity of regardless of having tics and Tourette syndrome, that you can still function. But again, we still have bad days. We still have days that crush us mentally and physically, but we still have the strength to continue on with that, because tomorrow's a new day, and we're hoping it's a lot better than what we're dealing with today.
I've been doing the videos just myself for so long. I'm like, people are only seeing me. They're only seeing my mind. Right. When I'm in a video, a lot of times just me, I'm so focused on what I'm trying to say. Sometimes either it'll trigger my tics more, or it'll make them almost seem obsolete, to the point where people have accused me of not really having Tourette syndrome, all that fun stuff. But
right. I have yet to have somebody accuse me of faking my Tourette's, at least online. I've had some people in person, just because, a lot of the people that I work with and, that have known me in my law enforcement career, have known me for a number of years. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to make noises and move around a little bit extra now. So I had some doubters to begin with. But I just want to reiterate again, it's with my pages and everything. It's just, I want to just spread that positivity and spread that confidence. A lot of people, especially kids, kids are just terrible. They can be really mean.
Yes.
And, it's just something that they just don't need to listen to that.
Right.
You ignore it. You have friends and family that love and adore you for who you are. Who cares what some random person that literally knows nothing about you other than you move around.
Right. Exactly.
And it just got to start gaining that confidence and just be positive about it. Because then there's just no looking back.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was such a pleasure talking to you. It was so cool talking to you. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours. I love all your posts. I love the advocacy.
I appreciate it.
I love the advocacy that you're spreading and everything else. And so just so I can make sure people know where to find you, if somehow they haven't come across you yet, you're Tourette's with an S Cop on all your social media platforms, correct?
Yep, all social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, all Tourette's Cop. I made it easy.
Yes, that's very, very easy to find. So, well, thank you again so much. Like I said, I really enjoyed this, and I appreciate your time talking to me. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yeah, same here. Likewise, I had a great chat, and just thanks for reaching out, so we were able to have a good conversation.